There is a small post in the hills of Afghanistan that is different from the rest, but not because of the attacks it has received, but for something a bit more sinister. According to the Marines who stayed there, it changed their lives completely. Known as Observation Point Rock or OP Rock, it is located in the infamous Helmand province in Afghanistan. It is a lonely and exposed post, sitting 65 feet above the surrounding area, which made it a great defensive position for centuries. According to the locals, the hill had originally been a fort, thought to have been built by the Mughal as well as Alexander the Great, also that it is very much haunted. After it was taken from the Taliban in 2008, a group of Marines were ordered to relieve a squad of British soldiers. When the Marines arrived at the location, they noticed the British looked worn out and were quick to hand over the post. Before leaving, the Marines were introduced to a dog named Ugly Betty and were told if they dig up anything, they should put it back where it was found. Puzzled by the British soldiers' urgency and condition, the Marines brushed it off as nothing. They set up camp as it will be their home for the next couple of months. Little did they know, they will soon discover the reason why the British left the post so quickly. The very first night of their rotation, Corporal Lena, who was second in command, was out on the lookout when he heard strange noises coming through the radio. Not sure if somebody was trying to contact them, he radioed back to the main base to see if it was them trying to relay a message, but they replied with no. Lena grabbed a fresh battery, hoped that would solve the malfunction, but it didn't. A few days later, the Marines decided to work on the trenches the British had dug, because it was neither wide or deep enough. It was as they had stopped working on it abruptly. As Lena was shoveling away the dirt, he hit what sounded like metal. He reached into the hole and pulled out an engineering stake with Russian writing on it. He didn't think of it much because he knew the Russians had been in Afghanistan in the 1980s. But something remarkable would happen next. As they dug deeper, Corporal Smith and Wilson unearthed a long bone, more specifically, a human femur. The man quickly put the bone back to its place and stopped digging in that area. But everywhere else they dug, they only found more bones. One night, as Lena was sleeping, he suddenly woke up to a blood-curdling scream. Thinking one of his men had been grabbed by the Taliban or something worse, he quickly grabbed his rifle and went outside. As he was assessing the situation, he ran into Wilson and another Marine named Mott, as they also heard the scream. Mott assumed somebody got caught in the razor wire that was set all around the perimeter of the post. As he was scanning the perimeter with his night vision, he saw nothing. Until a figure quickly darted across his sight. Guns at ready, Lena grabbed the thermal imaging camera to get a better visual, but nothing was spotted. Unable to explain, they blamed it on tiredness and decided to check it out in the morning. But when Lena and Corporal Parker went out to investigate the area next morning, there were no signs of anyone ever being there. On another night, when another Marine named Zolik was out on the watchguard getting hammered by the heat, when he suddenly felt a cold chill pass by him, followed by what felt like a breath on his face as something whispered into his ear in Russian. He quickly turned around, only to see no one there. Thinking it was nothing, he then heard footsteps on the roof. Convinced that it was Smith playing a joke, he goes out to look, but yet nothing was there. Zolik then starts to scan the perimeter when he sees a man standing in the distance with his fist up like he was going to fight somebody. Prepared to engage, thinking it was an enemy, when he suddenly loses the figure. He grabbed thermal camera to double check, but once again, there was nothing. Exhausted from the ordeal, he asked to be transferred the next morning, which was granted, although his squad was not happy. A few days later, Lena was up on watch duty with Ugly Betty when he heard her barking. He grabbed his night vision goggles and started scanning the surrounding area. He quickly spotted a man that resembled a Taliban scout. To ensure that it wasn't his eyes playing tricks on him, he grabbed the thermal camera, but to see nothing on it. He goes back to his night vision To his horror, he sees the same figure, now more than 100 meters closer within seconds. He tries again with the thermal, but nothing appeared on it once again. Lena then felt distinctive tappings of Sergeant Green, who was a squad leader. Thinking he came to check on him, Lena looks back over his shoulders and sees nothing but darkness. Even though Ugly Betty was still facing in that direction and barking at something. One night, Maud and Smith were on the watch when Maud heard footsteps approaching them. He turned around expecting someone to be there, but nobody was there. Soon Ugly Betty started to growl. He looked through the thermal, but it was only the dog and other Marines sleeping. He would hear the same crunch again, with now something breathe on his face. The whole squad would experience similar paranormal encounters, cold chill, strange whispering, and figures. Unable to describe what they were experiencing, they pointed to the supernatural. On the last night at OP Rock, one of the Marines named Diggs suddenly heard the radio began to crackle, then silence, because the radio had died. He quickly changed the battery, but that too would die. After changing multiple batteries with the same result, the Marines were left without a working radio. Later in the night, the squad woke to a machine gun fire. Lena runs to the lookout tower where Wilson was, but he had not fired anything and didn't know where the fire was coming from. When all of a sudden they hear RPG launching towards them and impacting inside the OP, but nothing hit them and no damage was taken. The firing continued. The Marines quickly got ready to fight what they thought was an assault by the Taliban, but then suddenly all stopped. No more machine gun fire, no enemies to be found anywhere. Everything was calm and quiet, and no damage to the post, like this assault never happened. Soon after leaving OP Rock, Diggs, Smith, and Parker were killed in Afghanistan, and Sergeant Green was severely injured. Lena later found out that OP Rock was actually a mass casualty site. In the 80s, when the Mujahideen were there, the Russians came in and killed everyone in there. A while later, the Taliban took over the post and executed all the Russians. Then when the US rolled into the region, they killed all the Taliban in a bomb attack.